Thank you.
Personal goal.
It is. I just wanted to see if I could do it.
Did it?
But yeah, I actually did.
Get a certificate.
Yeah.
Turn to 11. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Fall City Christian Church. Let's stand and let's worship this morning. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, well, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. See now, my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love, and my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love, and my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Shame no longer has a place to hide. I am not a captive to your lies. I'm not afraid to leave my past behind. Well, I won't be shaken. No, I won't be shaken. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. There's power that can break off every chain. There's power that can empty out a grave. There's resurrection power that can save. There's power in your name, power in your name. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. See that? My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. And my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Stand in your love. Stand in your love. Amen? You guys believe that? You say, welcome to Fall City. Let's greet each other in the Lord this morning. Greet them in the Lord.
What's up, guys?
We are so excited to see you guys here today, here this morning, and If you guys don't know, yesterday was Pastor Timmy's birthday, and it was a big one. It was a big one. He just turned 21. Actually not, but it was a big one. So if you have a chance, tell him happy birthday. Also, my wife turned something yesterday too, so I won't release that information. But if you didn't know, the church actually turned 1 yesterday too. So we've been, right. We've been like super blessed, and it's awesome to see you guys here to be able to worship this morning and to see what God's done over this past year. How many different families, how many different people, the community, different things we've been able to do with what He's richly blessed us with is just truly amazing. And I know when God laid this vision on several of our hearts, we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if anybody would show up or if anybody would believe in the mission that He had laid on our hearts. And to see you guys here believing in what this church is doing, believing in what God is doing through us and through you is just an amazing thing. So it's important to tell everybody about this place. Tell them about, say, hey, check it out online, check it out. And because there's a lot of hurt and broken people out there that need to hear this message. And sometimes we bring it in a little unconventional way, but it's all for God, it's all for His glory. We're going to take a little time right now to give back a portion of what He's given us, what He's so graciously blessed us with, and we can offer our tithes and offerings to Him in that way. So as we sing out a creed of what we believe, let's also offer back a portion of what He's given to us. Somebody once said, it's almost like, as far as tithing goes, it's like God dropped His wallet. He had $10 in there, and He said, hey, just give me $1, you can have the rest. So if you think about it like that, giving 10% or whatever is really not that big of a deal, because I know in our jobs and different things, God blesses us in that way, and for Him to do that, say, all I want is just a little portion to help run the church and to help those that are in need. It's really not that big of a sacrifice. But before we get started, let's say a prayer, and let's invite God and the Holy Spirit and His Son in this place. God, we just thank You so much for who You are. We thank You for the freedoms we have to come and worship You in this fashion. We thank You for those that are here, and pray that this music and the message and the offering and the communion and every element that we have today, that it impacts those here in a different way, in a way maybe they haven't seen You before. And we invite You and Your Holy Spirit and Jesus in this place, and just welcome You. This is Your house, and we just love You so much. God, we just give You all the glory and all the honor and all the praise. It's in Your Son's name, Jesus, that I pray. Amen. Our Father everlasting, the all-creating one, God Almighty, through Your Holy Spirit, conceiving Christ the Son, Jesus our Savior. I believe in God our Father, I believe in Christ the Son, I believe in the Holy Spirit, our God is 3 in 1. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again, for I believe in the name of Jesus. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. I believe in God our Father. I believe in Christ the Son. I believe in the Holy Spirit. Our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. For I believe in the name of Jesus. For I believe in the name of Jesus. And I believe in life eternal. I believe in the virgin birth. I believe in the saints' communion and in your holy church. I believe in the resurrection when Jesus comes again. For I believe in the name of Jesus. For I believe in the name of Jesus. Oh, I believe in the name of Jesus. Amen. You guys can have a seat. We come to a time when we remember that sacrifice that Jesus gave when he went to the cross. We just sing about believing in that crucifixion, about believing in the resurrection, about believing in eternal life. See, when Jesus went to the cross, he suffered and bled and died for all of our sins. He took the sin debt and the chains that held us down for thousands of years and bore that all on the cross. He lived a blameless and perfect life, fully God and fully human. Came to this earth to suffer and bled and die for us. Before he left, he instructed us to take communion in this fashion. He said, whenever you eat the bread and drink the cup, you proclaim my death. You proclaim my life each time you take it. Because the story didn't end on the cross. 3 days later, Jesus rose and conquered death and defeated the grave and broke those sins and chains that were on us. So we remember that in this fashion. Each week, we come and eat the bread that represents his body that was broken and drink the cup that represents his blood was poured out, as he instructed us to do. The night before Jesus was betrayed, before he went to the cross, he took his disciples to a room probably similar in size to this. He broke the bread and he gave it to his disciples. And he said, take and eat, this is my body, it's going to be broken for you. Then he took the cup, said, take and drink, this is my blood, it'll be poured out for you. So this morning, the bread represents his body and the cup represents his blood. This is your time to worship with him in an intimate way, to thank God and to thank Jesus for that death on the cross and for what it means in our lives, for the hope that it brings us. To know that we can now boldly come before the throne of God, blameless and spotless in his sight, through the crucifixion and the death of his son. As we sing this next song, this is your time to worship in any fashion that you see fit. If you need to stand or sit or move about the room, however you need to do it, this is your time. Feel free to take it at your own time and pace. God, we just thank you so much for the fact that the grave couldn't hold you. The fact that your love is unbounding and never-ending. The fact that you called us out of the darkness, that you call us your sons and daughters, that you want the best for us no matter what, that you come running to us with your arms open wide, ready to put that ring on our finger and welcome us into your home, into your arms, into your embrace. God, thank you so much for this moment that we have and the freedoms that we have to worship you in this way. This is your time, this is your moment. We just give you all the glory and all the honor and all the praise. It's in your son's name, Jesus, that I pray. Amen.
Out of the ground, there ain't no grave gonna hold my body down. Between death and life, and there on a tree, the Lamb of God was crucified, and he went on down to hell, and he took back every
God, we rejoice in the fact that no grave can hold you down. No grave is going to hold us down. Because of that life that you freely gave for us, the resurrection and the life, Jesus. God, we just thank you so much for the love and the hope and the joy that you bring us. I know it came at such a high cost, but to know that you value each one of us so much that you would offer your most prized possession for the chance to spend an eternity with us. God, I pray that you take this moment, that you take this message this morning, that you use it in a mighty way in our lives, that you allow it to resonate as we go from this place this morning. Pray that you be with Tim as he brings the message, and lift up those that are here. We love you so much. It's in your son's name, Jesus, that I pray. Amen. You guys can have a seat.
Fan this off. I think that mic is smoking. Man, that was good stuff. I don't even know what to say now. I should just pray and dismiss, right? I think she pretty well killed it on that. Today's going to be a little different. It's a one-of, and next week we got a special guest speaker. He's a super sexy guy. You just saw him on the keyboards here. He's gonna bring a message to you next week, and then I've also got a former student from one of my youth groups that's coming on Father's Day to speak. His name is Drew. While I spend every penny I have, and maybe just a little bit more than that, at Disney World for the next couple weeks. So that's how we're celebrating my 40th birthday. So yesterday I turned 40, and I've been telling people that at midnight on my 40th birthday I filed for a 10-year extension to get my life together, because I thought it was going to happen by 40, and it hasn't. So I'm going to give it another 10 years. So 50 is the new 40. All right, y'all? So, I'm a little tired today because I partied pretty hard last night for my birthday. I came home around 7 and I watched Adventures in Babysitting on the Disney Channel, and then I went to bed. So, forgive me if I just don't have the energy this morning. So, it's crazy the things that you think about and reflect on whenever you realize that you're getting a little bit older, right? Does anybody else do that, or is that just me? All right. So I'm going to talk with the three of you guys, and the rest of you go ahead and take a nap. Some of y'all are older than me, so you might need it, or it might be bedtime for you. I don't know. I'm one of those kind of guys where I believe that everything is spiritual. Like, everything is spiritual. The music that I listen to, there is some sort of spiritual connotation, undertones to all of it. Either you can see the presence of God or the need for God in the music that I listen to, in the movies that I watch, in the TV shows that I watch, even like dicey ones like Adventures in Babysitting. You can find spiritual undertones, and so this is super nerdy, and you guys feel free to laugh at me, feel free to make fun of me, feel free to scream obscenities if it's too ridiculous. But I was mowing the lawn the other day, and I saw reflections of these seasons of my life and my mowing patterns, not the literal patterns, but in how I mowed the lawn over the years. I know it's ridiculous. It's kind of stupid, but I found myself looking at the similarities between my mowing habits and my spiritual life. And that's weird and silly, but I look at all this through the light of a particular passage. It's called the Great Commandment. Are you guys familiar with the Great Commandments? It says this in Matthew chapter 22. It says, "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?" And Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, in all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second, equally important, which is, you need to think about that. A second is equally as important as the first one. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based on these two commandments. And so whenever you think about that, I think literally what it's like to be a good neighbor. So a couple things when I mow. I don't throw the grass in the neighbor's yard, and I don't throw the grass on the road, okay? Because, I mean, literally, that's what it's like to be a good neighbor. But I want to unpack this a little farther, because my mowing habits aren't just in how I mow the lawn, but it's in, like, the stages in which I mow the lawn sometimes, which is weird, I know, but I don't listen to music when I mow. I don't listen to podcasts when I mow. I focus. I got to keep my lines straight. Stripes are important, okay? And so the first point, the first one that I thought about it and came up with was this: the lawn mullet. Okay, if you guys all know what a mullet is, business up front, party in the back. All right, I have been somebody who has donned the Kentucky waterfall a time or two in my life. Okay. Sometimes, at point in time, I had even the Kentucky Peace Stream, which is the rat tail. All right? No joke. As a kid, I had the flat top mullet with the racing stripes in the side. All right? I'm not proud of it, but in transparency, I wanted to share this. So if there's anybody that's offended by this, know that I'm with you. It's not my proudest moment, but it was a moment nonetheless. And so, you know what I'm talking about. It's whenever you got to get the yard done, but you don't have much time, so you mow the front yard real nice because that's what everyone sees. Right? You mow the front yard really, really nice, and that's what everyone sees, but the backyard looks like a jungle. Right? You've got like a Camaro on cinder blocks, a bunch of PBR cans hidden in there like Easter eggs, right? In this tall thicket of grass, and maybe there's a random neighbor kid lost in there somewhere or something like that. It is like a mullet. It's business up front. You're showing people that you got your life together. But in back, it's a tad trashy, right? It's a tad messy. It's a tad offensive even at times. You know, just a side note here, because I have ADD, there is a website called mullethunters.com. And you can find mullets in public and take pictures and submit it, and you get points. Then you can get Mullet Hunters swag. Okay? I'm not even sponsored by those guys, but I felt like it was good enough to mention. So Jesus confronts this group of guys who kind of treat their faith like a lawn mullet, right? On the surface, it looks really, really good. It looks like they're really neat and put together, but inside, it's a bit trashy. It's a bit messy. It's a bit offensive. So if we check this out in Matthew chapter 23, it says, What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourselves, and you don't let others in either. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! You shamelessly cheat widows out of their property, and then you pretend to be pious by making long prayers in public. Because of this, you will be severely punished. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law and Pharisees, hypocrites! You cross land and sea to make one convert, but then you turn that person into twice the child of hell that you yourselves are. That's some pretty intense stuff, right? I'd say Jesus is a little teased off here, right? What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisees, first wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. Outwardly, you look righteous, but inwardly, your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. Now, I'm going to let you guys know, I've done this before. I've mowed the front lawn real nice. And then at our last house, we had this 8-foot privacy fence. And so nobody could see what was in that backyard. And it was growing up, and I'm afraid creatures maybe were living in there. There were moments whenever I didn't want to let my kids in the backyard because I was afraid they were going to be captured and drugged to some different world or something. But on the outside of it, I looked like I had it all together. I would weed eat around the fence post. I would mow in these straight lines. I would make sure I threw my grass in a way where it wasn't too chunky or clumpy, but in the back, I just didn't care. Just as long as I looked like I had my stuff together, that's all that mattered. You see, these guys are religious leaders. And the way they secure their positions was by looking like they were better than everyone. Looking like they had their stuff together, right? The reality was that what they were doing was all a show. It was just a show. Their faith was a show. Their religion was a show. Their position was a show. Everything about them was a show. They were posers, right? They were fakes. Things looked put together on the outside, but inside they were insecure. They were willing to slight anybody just to keep up appearances. We kind of do that with our faith, right? We kind of do that with our positions. We kind of do that with our lives and our jobs and our position at school or on a sports team or something like that. We will slight anybody to get a step up. And everything they did was calculated so that they could be seen being a religious person. Right? And so in light of that anchor passage, the great commandment, they simply tricked people. They tricked their neighbor. They were tricksters. It's a sham. It's a show. Am I whistling whenever I say shh? Feel like that gopher on Winnie the Pooh, right? Or that old man on Family Guy? I don't know about you, but at the ripe old age of 40 years and 1 day old, okay, I don't have a lot of margin and room to have tricksters in my life. Or at least to hold them close enough for them to trick me. And I don't have the energy or the margin in my life to be the person that's worried about being the trickster. And so the spiritual lawn mullet, if you will, is not an option in my life anymore. I declare that at my hatred for lawn mullets at 40 years old, people. But the fact of the matter is we tend to do this and we don't even know it. We're in a hurry, we're in a rush, we don't have time, and so what do? We manicure the spots of our lives where we feel people can see, and then the areas where people can't see, what do? We just let it go wild, to the point where it can be offensive and maybe even a little trashy, right? And then the second thing I call, the second issue, the second pattern, the second season that I've had in my mowing history. I don't know that I'd ever said or thought that I'd say something about my mowing history, right? Is the how much do I owe you? All right? Do you guys know what that one is? The how much do I owe you? And I want to set the record straight here because they ain't nothing wrong with paying somebody to mow your lawn. All right? There are good people out there that make a good living and do a great job at mowing people's lawns. All right? But my season was last summer. All right? This is my confession to you guys. where technically, there's that voice crack again. One of these days, I'm going to become a man preacher, okay? No? That's fine. That's fine. Young at heart. Technically, I was perfectly capable of mowing my own lawn. But I didn't like my lawnmower. It was old and kind of crusty. It was hard to drive. Like I had to push the clutch so hard that my hips would hurt. I'd almost have to go to the chiropractor. The wheels were too small and I'd get stuck in the ditch all the time. It was just a pain in my butt. And so I just had my brother and his mowing crew come and mow my lawn for me. All right? Not a big deal. But here's where I become a jerk. I asked for the family discount. Right? I said, Dylan, I can't mow my lawn, which was a lie. My lawnmower sucks, which wasn't a lie. Whenever you guys are in Madison, can you swing by and take care of my lawn for me, weed eat, mow, and all that? And can you do it for the family discount? And of course he did, because he's a heck of a brother. He's a good brother, right? But of all people who should pay full price, it would be me. But I had this entitlement, I guess. This entitlement. What are you guys laughing at? Is my fly down? I was a complete brat last summer. But I had this sense of entitlement. And so my young brother, 10 years younger than me, I mean, I've been the best big brother to him in the world. He owes me that, right? I've paid my dues. I've put in my time. I've taken him places. I've done things for him. Certainly, he could do that for me. And there are times whenever we do the same thing with our faith, where when we're kind of entitled, where we kind of say we've paid our dues, or we should get the family discount, or whatever it is. And you say things like, well, I come to church most Sundays, and I put money in the offering plate, so technically I've paid my dues. So, Pastor, you can do this part for me. Or Ryan, you could do this part for me, or you guys could do this for me, or you could do that for me. Or you say things like, well, I'm just not getting fed there. Because those kind of people, consumers, want somebody to hand feed them, and they're not even willing to chew and swallow and digest what it is that's being fed to them. And so the consumer says things like that. Or they say, well, I've been a member my whole life, and the problem with members is members are entitled. You're not a member, you're a part of the body. You're an owner, right? How many of you guys at the beginning of this year went to the gym for like 2 weeks and then stopped? Anybody? I can't raise my hand. I was just showing you what it looks like to raise your hand. But because I didn't even go there because I know better. You know those people that do that. I'm not going to mention any names, Don Meacham, but you know those people that do that. Whenever you go to the gym and you're pumping iron and looking at yourself in the mirror, or at least walking on the treadmill and watching TV, right? Something breaks, what do? You go up to the desk and say, your equipment's broke, right? Here I was trying to get my sweat on and get my swell on, and your equipment's broke. You need to get somebody to fix that. Oh, well, whenever you're a part of the body, whenever you're an owner as opposed to just a member, then you are a part of fixing it. You don't just walk up to somebody and say, oh, well, something's broke. Y'all need to fix that. No, consumers do that, but people who are a part of the body do not do that. Or you say things like, my grandpa helped build this church with his bare hands. And my response to that is, how neat would it be to have a grandpa with the hands of a bear, right? I think that would be super cool. But in life, I've noticed that those are the same people that are terrible tippers as well. Do we have any terrible tippers in the house? Anybody that's a horrible tipper? Yeah, you guys ain't gonna meet. Okay, we got one. I was gonna say, you guys wouldn't do that. That's called a lawn mullet. You're pulling the lawn mullet on us, all right? Or the people who, I literally knew guys like this in my life. were sitting at the table, and they have like their tip in change. And every time the drink goes empty, they pull some of that tip away. I'm just going to lay this out here, all right? I've never done this. And people who do it, you're a jerk. You're just a big fat jerk. End of rant. Jerks. So what we're called to be are neighbors to the people. What we're called to be are neighbors to our servers. What we're called to be is neighbors to the people who do stuff for us. What we're called to be are neighbors, not necessarily consumers, right? And regardless of how much we think we deserve, there is still some sweat equity that comes into our faith. We still have to do something. We still have to put in some work. In James chapter 2, verse 26, it says, just as the body is dead without breath, so also faith is dead without good works. Because faith without works is dead, and just showing up and throwing a nickel in the plate isn't necessarily good fruit. In the book of Matthew, Jesus talks about a tree that bears good fruit. You will know a tree by their fruit. And if a tree produces bad fruit or doesn't produce fruit, then it is cut down and thrown into the lake of fire. I know that sounds pretty intense, but the fact of the matter is we can't come here, expect people to hand feed us, not be willing to chew, swallow, and digest, and to have the nourishment to grow fruit if we're not willing to work for it. You see? The issue is we come in, we kind of phone it in, and we're perfectly capable of manicuring and working for our faith and our purpose and our spiritual walk. But what we want to do is we want to come in and say, well, how much do I owe you? I need you to do this for me. And I can't. If I could do it for everybody and ensure that they all get to heaven, I would totally do it. But guys, I can't. You have to own your faith. And James is telling us that we've got to put some work in it in order to be the person that we were created to be. And so he's saying that your faith is dead if you're a lazy jerk. It's a spiritual impossibility to be a follower of Christ and a lazy jerk at the same time. It's one or the other. Which side of the fence are you on? And that people of faith do not use others, but they serve others. People of faith do not trick others. They do not use others, but they serve others, which leads me to my last one. I call it the party yard. Okay? The party yard. It's not a party yard. Party. That means we're bringing the heat, right? And the party yard, excuse me, it's French, is all about being a servant. And I really like this one. Who doesn't like a good party? Right? So if you've ever been to my house, you'll notice a few things. First, my house is lived in. I got 2 boys, and they are crazy. They have a crazy mom. But when you come to my house, there's no trickery in the aesthetic of Casa del Chandler. You know it's a lived-in dwelling. Right? Second, our setup revolves around a few things in our house. All right? The kitchen table. It's what we use to play cards and play board games. We rarely eat at it. If we do, I'm opening up a McDonald's chicken nugget box. Just being honest with y'all. The TV. Just got a new 75-inch screen TV. It's huge. It's like a wall. And that is reserved specifically for whooping your tail at Mario Kart. All right? That's why we purchased it. You can ask Ryan and Steph. I still got it. And then the backyard. The backyard is where the grill is. Not that grill, but the barbecue grill. Okay? It's where the fire pit is. And it's where the kids play. It's where people hang out. Right? Because any man who has a backyard should have a fire pit. Because any man who's a man has just a little bit of pyro in him, right? If I could get an amen for anything, it's got to be that, right? Any man who's a man likes to play with fire a little bit. So that being said, when I mow lately, it is specific to my purpose and intention for my yard. And whenever I manicure things spiritually, it is specific for my purpose and my intention in the space that I'm creating. All right? In the front yard, stripes are a must. 1 week vertical, next week horizontal. Right? Yeah. What? That's a little too advanced for the front yard. All right? The sides, straight stripes the whole way. We don't crisscross at all because the turnaround space is just a little too small and it just looks all jacked up. The back though, the backyard where the people are, it gets checkerboarded. All right? But I go back and forth. The second time around, I go one way the whole time. And what I do is I throw the grass away from the house into the ditch line in the backyard, because that means the people who are at my house aren't all itchy and have all this grass all over the place, and they're not tracking it in, and they can just chill in this perfectly manicured back. Statement real quick. It's not perfectly manicured right now. It's looking a little just party in the back, the whole thing. But the thing about it is it's because I want to create an environment for people to enjoy their time whenever they're in my space, whenever they're with me, whenever they're around me, because in that moment, they are my direct neighbors. And as a follower of Christ, I believe that it is on me to cultivate and to create and to manicure that environment. An environment that has purpose and that has reason. Not to mention, I don't want the dogs and the kids dragging grass clippings in the house, because then I have to hit them in the face. I mean, I have to take their phones away from them. I'm just kidding. The only person that gets hit in the house is me. Blink twice, if yes. But the main reason is to create this environment for people to enjoy their time, to sit by the fire, to roast a hot dog, or to have a s'more, or to sit down and have a meal and enjoy each other's presence. I've noticed that Jesus does this type of thing throughout his ministry. And so in chapter Mark, verse 6, I love this. One of my favorite passages in the Bible. I can't preach a sermon without saying that. It says, late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, well, let me set the groundwork. So Jesus just wanted to take off into nature a little bit with his boys to teach them, but this whole crowd found out about him, and they followed him into kind of the wilderness or into the hillside, all right? And they're stuck in a situation where there's tons of people and not much to eat. So it says, late in the afternoon, his disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so that they can go to nearby farms and villages and buy something to eat. But Jesus said, you feed them. Right? And so the disciples were, I don't want to handle this. I don't want to deal with this. So send them to take care of themselves. Right? Like, this is on them. This is their problem. And Jesus challenges them and he says, you serve them. You take care of it. You feed them. With what, they asked? We'd have to work for months to earn enough money to buy food for all these people. How much bread do you have, he asked. Go and find out. And they came back and reported, we have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Then Jesus told the disciples to have the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of 50 or 100, and Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish and looked up to heaven and blessed them. Then breaking the loaves into pieces, he kept giving the bread to the disciples so they could distribute it to the people. He also divided the fish for everyone to share. They all ate as much as they wanted, and afterward, the disciples picked up 12 what? Baskets, yes. Yes, baskets. Some of y'all can read. Some of y'all are paying attention. 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. A total of 5,000 men, all right, and their families were fed. So probably 20 to 25,000 people in all. And there are 12 baskets. That's 24 points. 24 points, all right? It's basketball, worked into a sermon, Mr. Wrestler Boy, all right? There were 12 baskets, 24 points. That was a challenge from him, and I made it work. Kinda? Anybody? Who's with me? Team Timmy? Team Ray Black cool? All right. Once again, you're jerks. Anyways, so the thing that I love about this passage, okay? The thing that I love about this passage is all these people are here, and they're hungry for both literally and figuratively. They're hungry physically, but they're also hungry to know the love of Jesus Christ, to experience the love of Jesus Christ. But one thing I love about this passage is that Jesus does a miracle inside of a miracle. We always think about the fact that he multiplied the bread and the fish. But he's in a land, in an environment where it's not the luscious. It's hillside, and it's rocky, and it's sandy, and it's not like this beautiful garden, lush area. And so people follow him, and he begins to teach, and the disciples say, let them go get food, and he replies, you serve them and figure it out. And then Jesus does what? He gives them green grass in the middle of a topography that isn't built for that to sit down on. He creates this environment. He manicures this environment for these 20 to 25,000 people to sit down on, to be comfortable, to be nourished, to be fed, to be loved, and to be served. Right? And so he creates that environment. He cultivates a culture of service in his disciples. And there's an abundance. And people have experienced the love of Jesus Christ because of it. Is that what we are creating with our life? Is that our purpose? Is that what we are doing in the mundane things of our lives, like mowing the flipping lawn? You know? Is that what we're thinking about? How do I serve? How do I serve? A person who cultivates an environment for people to be fed, served, and loved. Check this passage out. A lot of times when I read this passage, it's at a funeral. It's normally somber time. It's normally a pretty rough time. And I read it because I find it extremely encouraging. It's Psalm 23, and a lot of you guys kind of know this. The Lord is my shepherd. He knows what I want. Right? I'm just kidding. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. He lets me rest in green meadows. He leads me beside peaceful streams. He renews my strength. He guides me along right paths, bringing honor to his name. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I take a look at my life and realize there's nothing left. Right? Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. Your rod and your staff protect and comfort me. You prepare a feast for me in the presence of my enemies. You honor me by anointing my head with oil. My cup overflows with blessings. Surely your goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. You talk about cultivating an environment. That passage is fire. It is awesome, right? You make me lie down in green pastures. We're talking about a shepherd here. We're talking about sheep. What do sheep eat? Grass. So he leads them to the luscious areas and he nourishes them. Not only does he just lead them, but he makes them lie down. He makes them rest in the moment. He cultivates the environment for them to rest and be nourished. He leads them beside still waters for some peace, for a stinking break. The Bible calls that Sabbath. He prepares a feast. And I like food. I think Fajitas are one of the greatest creation ever. I love me some fajitas. So when I think about preparing a feast in the presence of my enemies, I think fajitas, right? So here we all sitting down around the table, loving on one another. It's great. And what do you hear coming up? The sizzle and the smoke filling the table, right? And my enemies are over there like, I'd really like some of that, right? And I'm like, take that, enemies. The Lord is my shepherd. He knows what I want, right? But the thing about it is he prepares a feast in the presence of my enemies, knowing that there is something, there are things, there is a circumstance, there's a situation in my life that wants to kill me. It wants to choke the life out of me. It wants to pull me away from the table in the presence of my Lord. Something like worrying about what other people think. The lawn mullet, right? Or something about not wanting to do it myself, so I expect other people, the consumer, right? And then he follows it with, man, I want to dwell in this place forever. Have you ever had those nights, those moments, those times when you're hanging out with people that you love and the mood is just perfect and you just don't want the night to end? For anybody playing Mario Kart with me, you probably haven't experienced that because that's my night, people. But have you ever had that? Have you ever? It just seemed like the environment, the barometric pressure of the room, the just everything about it is perfect, and you don't want it to end. In this passage, I see where Jesus cultivates that environment. And we just don't want to leave the presence. He says, I want to dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Why? Just read everything that he's done to prepare this environment. And Jesus was the best at this. And if we are to be like him, we've got to work at this. We shouldn't be posers. And we shouldn't be just consumers or tricksters or users. Okay? But what we should be are just amazing servants, people who think about creating an environment in this world with our lives, with the space that we're given, with our sphere of influence, a place where people can come to meet Jesus, and in that, never want to leave it. They want to dwell in it forever. Let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for just the example that you give us and how intentional you are in creating space for us to be exactly who we're supposed to be. And that is yours. That is in you. That is in your presence. That is living in an abundant joy that only you can provide. And Father, I pray as your body, not as members, but as parts of your body, that we can be servants. That we can fix what needs to be fixed, that we can create environments that need to be created in order for people to come to know you and never want to leave it. Lord, we thank you for that. We thank you for your Son, Jesus, who made it all possible, who came from heaven to earth and reconciled us back to you through his death, his burial, and his resurrection. And Father, I pray if there's anybody here today that's wrestling with that they come to know that you are the good shepherd and that you have used us to cultivate an environment here where they can come to know you and never want to leave it. Father, we love you and we thank you for our salvation and our life. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. All right, guys, I got just a couple announcements. Last Wednesday was our last coffee and conversation. We're going to try and get together and maybe do a bonfire or something. But until school starts back up, we're not going to do coffee and conversation. We had some good cookies the other night. We laughed and cried. We shoved our faces full of no-bakes. And then also, this coming Wednesday at 7 p.m., correct? Dawn and Nick have agreed to volunteer to begin to do just that, create an environment for our 4th through 8th graders to come and draw near to God. This time I think they're gonna do some pizza, play some games, get to know each other. But this is the beginning of us creating Falls City students, so that we're able to reach people on their level. That way, they don't always have to just go home and try and chew on the ridiculous stuff that I say on Sunday mornings, right? So I want you to get behind that. If you've got kids that are 4th through 8th grade, bring them Wednesday night at 7. We would love to see you. I think they will love your children well. If they don't, I'll beat them up. Just let me know. I got this. Any other announcements? Ryan's preaching next week. You don't know? It can't be more random than this sermon. So just go mow your lawn. Maybe you'll get some inspiration. So, but make sure you come back for that. And then it's real special to me. Normally I would have Quentin preach on Father's Day, but I had an opportunity to pour into a young guy who's wanting to kind of do some preaching. And I think we are the type of the people that like to equip and encourage. So a young guy by the name of Drew Dawson is going to come from the Lexington area, and he's going to preach on Father's Day. So you can come in and just love on your kids, dads. And Quentin, you don't have to worry about being a preacher. You just have to worry about being a dad. I believe we got something special going on for Father's Day. Am I allowed to announce it? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, what she said. I'm scared of her after she says so. But yeah, you want to be here for that, and it's going to be good. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Ryan has to bring next week and what Drew has to bring the week after that. So it was good to see you guys. I'm 40 now. I thought maybe after I turned 40 I'd hate y'all. Nope, still love you. Can't wait to see you guys in a couple weeks. I'm going to Disney. I'll see you. You got any problems? Call Adam.